I've been through a number of clubs before I found Core JC. And what most impresses me about Core JC is the people, the friendliness, and the organization. Yep. And how we do things, I think, is unique in the community. We do a lot of promotion of rookie runs and teaching people how to do it safely. We have an organized guide training program within the club. We support the OF4WD, and we just have fun. It's very low drama, very low issues. Everyone is there because they want to wheel and they want to have fun, and we all work together, and it works really well.
Warning. The 4x4 Canada podcast contains discussion about exploring mountains, camping beside lakes, and enjoying the outdoors. Guests also talk about jumping race trucks side by side, racing 1,000 horsepower rigs across mud pits, and jumping monster trucks over stacks of buses. None of this is for the faint of heart. The 4x4 Canada podcast is not responsible for bringing out your inner adrenaline junkie or making you want to get out there and explore the back roads from coast to coast. The 4x4 Canada podcast is not responsible for broken parts due to jumping your vehicle, hitting mud poles too hard, crossing deep streams, and doing other dumb shit. However, we will take credit for inspiring you to explore mountaintops, spend quality time outdoors with your friends, or meeting new like-minded people, and most importantly of all, following your dreams.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast. I'm your host, Trisha.
And I'm your other host, Wes.
I'm Brad. I'm a member of the Central Ontario Off-Road Jeep Club.
And I'm Mo, and I'm a member also of the Central Ontario Off-Road Jeep Club.
Same with me. I'm Dave. For short, we call it Core JC.
That might be a lot easier to memorize. You got to remember, it's early on a Saturday morning over here in BC. So once again, thank you guys for joining us and taking time out of your Saturday morning over there. And really looking forward to this. I know the club's been around for a long time. We've got some neat things to talk about coming up. Before we get into that, I do want to just touch base on next week. We have Tony coming up from Rux Life, RUX. And what they are is a company in BC that manufactures storage solutions. They're a foldable, collapsible box, for lack of better terms. And they have dividers you can put in them. They also have attachments you can put on the outside. So you know how we all have our tubs, our big plastic tubs. These things here are weather resistant. They're not quite weatherproof. They are working on that, and they will hopefully have the weatherproof ones out soon, especially for the boat market. But they do collapse when you're not using them, which is really nice. And then you also have dividers in them. So you can divide them up. I know my totes for my kitchen stuff is just a big tote of stuff. And so I'm really looking forward to getting one of these where I can divide it up a little bit, make it a bit more streamlined. So Tony will be coming up next week with Rux Life on that one. And we do have some more interviews coming up. I also want to mention to our listeners that if you are interested in coming on the show, or if you know of somebody, or you have a recommendation, by all means, hit us up on Instagram at 4x4 Canada Podcast, or the website, 4x4canadapodcast.com. We do have a form there as well. And we're always looking to talk to people from different backgrounds. We've had YouTube people. We've got the Jeep clubs. We've had a few Jeep clubs on before. We've had the Overlanders from YouTube, the Instagrammers. A couple weeks ago, we had the mega truck racers out of Alberta. We're talking about doing mega trucks. We're talking big, tall tractors and 3,500 horsepower and doing double backflips and all that fun stuff. And earlier in the year, we had Nicole McCrossan. She's an third generation off-road racer out of Ontario. So we like to mix it up. And so if anybody is interested in coming on the show, if you have a recommendation, hit us up and we'll go from there. But in the meantime, let's get back to our guest today. And Trisha, I know that you are super excited to have these folks on. These are your people. So how about you started off there, Trisha?
Sure. So again, thank you for joining us, members of Corge. I have to say Corge. Like Corge. Excited to have you guys on. I know that beginning when I first joined Wes on the podcast, I was like, there's one club we have to get on. It's Corge. That's where it all began for me. So we need to get them on. So I was really excited. And people who don't know the Central Ontario Off-Road Jeep Club, it's a club out in Ontario, and they offer basically like social, recreational, educational activities, trail guiding, everything. Here first, where can our listeners find the group? You guys have any social medias, your website? Where can they find you?
Our main social media is Facebook. We do a lot of organizing through Facebook. We have a public page that anyone can join, and we have a members only page for the paid members. We also have a website, corjc.com. It's where you join the club, register for runs. There's lots of information about us on the website.
So basically, Facebook and the website are your two most common outsources for you guys.
You got it.
And then let's begin with introducing yourselves. We have 3 members with us today. Wes said this is our largest, our biggest podcast so far. So there's 5 of us, which is really cool. You want to introduce yourselves and just tell us what you do with Corge?
I'm Mo, and I've been with Corge AC now since 2016. I am an active trail guide and have now just been transitioned to be an Adopt a Trail lead, which is excellent. And I'm sure we'll discuss what that's all about with the ON4WD. But I have a 2015 JKU high altitude that over a 6-7 year period, I have slowly modified to get her to where I think I pretty much want her. She's equipped with a 3.5-inch rack crawler lift, 16 shocks. I run 37 STT Pros. I'm mounted on Dirty Life wheels. Dana 44, re-geared to 488 gears, E-locker. The Jeep came with a Dana 44 in the back, so we re-geared that to match the front, and E-locker there as well. So she's almost a Rubicon, I would say. So she's right there. And I think it took time, but I'm just happy with where she is today and pretty much can handle any of the trails that I've tackled over the years. Yeah, that's me.
So my name's Brad Yard. I am the lead for organizing our rookie runs this year. My wife and I, Tasha, will be organizing the rookie runs. And I'm also obviously a trail guide as a result of that. I have a 2016 JK that started its life as a Sahara and is now way beyond the capabilities of a Sahara. And Mo, I would say you're beyond a Rubicon at this point. So am I. That's where we want to be.
And I'm Dave. I guess the newer one. I joined the JC in 2019 when I got my 19 actual Rubicon. I was probably one of the first JLs that was regularly out on the trails. There just weren't that many of them then, much more now. Mine's pretty basic. I've just got a 2-inch lift and some 35-inch all-terrain tires, but it pretty much gets me everywhere I need to go. I also am with Courtesy, a trail guide, and I try and help out wherever I can.
And he makes it fun.
That's what it's all about. You've got to have fun. So let's talk about the Corge AC. How long has it been around? Who started it? And how has it changed over the years to what it is now?
The club was founded in April of 2017, and it was an initial, and the Facebook group was in 2015, actually, originally. And its inaugural run took place on the May long weekend of that same year. And it was founded by Mark and Angie Sims, who great people, and they just wanted to wheel. Mark got his Jeep and wanted to find other people who enjoyed wheeling, and the rest is history. And I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more, but that's how the club started, and it's grown to be the size that it is today.
How many members do you think, or do you guys have exact numbers of how big it is right now?
Don't have exact numbers, but for the last several years, we've topped out at about 250 paid members. And our website has, or our Facebook group, the non-paid side has 3,000 or 4,000 members, I believe.
Central Ontario, what does that cover? Basically, do you guys are you just stuck into the Barrie area, or you guys like, I'm from BC, but I do know a bit about Ontario, but obviously not enough to know exactly what you guys are calling Central Ontario.
Central Ontario is partly the area that you'll find most of the trails here. Ontario being broken up into Southern Ontario, which is one of the major cities, all the way from Toronto all the way down to Windsor, and Northern Ontario, which is much more sparsely populated and difficult to get to, and then Central Ontario, which is just that middle section. But it is where most of the trails are. It is where there's crown land that can be used as trails. It's where the OF4WD Trail Index has most of its entries, so you can find trails to go to. And then our founders were from Buckhorn, which is dead center in the middle of that. So that's where it came from.
Wheeling in Ontario, there's really a couple of regions. There's kind of the triangle, I will call it, of Minden, Haliburton, down to Bobcaygeon. There's all kinds of trails through there. And then there's a grouping of trails up in the Ottawa Valley area, Calabogie. And then there's a grouping of trails further north in Vimuts. And those are the recognized off-roading trails for Ontario. There's lots of other unassumed roads, and the further north you go, the more it becomes uncharted territory. There's hundreds and thousands of kilometers of trails far north, but we don't have the map because it's not tons of people get up there, and the people that are up there already know where all the trails are, so they just use them.
And the ones that are in Central Ontario are just more accessible to the higher populated centers, like the whole Gordon Horseshoe area. So it is still a couple hour drive to the trailhead. It's not going to Northern Ontario where you're looking at 5 or 6 hour drive.
Yeah. I did live in Ontario for about 10 years, and I do remember going up into the Minden area and Haliburton and stuff like that. And that definitely seems to be the most popular area, but that's also because it's so close to the main population, right? So
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
And
which is also one of the
couple of hours, right? So it's easier to get to for most people.
Yeah.
And also lead to other challenges that it's so close. There's a lot of us on the trails.
Yeah. That's a different issue.
Yeah. And it definitely is a concern, and so what is the core JC? So you've talked about the online presence as well as in membership and stuff like that. What does the core JC entail?
I'll start that one. It's a mindset, and it's the people. More than anything, it's about people and getting out and wheeling and having some fun.
Yeah, I consider it family now. There's people I have been wheeling with every season for all these years. And it's the camaraderie, it's the sharing of experiences. It's just the lasting friendships that have been forged. And it's such an all around type of club, because between the monthly rookie runs to the social barbecues, sharing long weekends together, it's been a great opportunity. It's been a great experience for me, at least. And that's where I've garnered most of my trailing experience, has been because of this club and the people in it.
Basically,
it's also a great opportunity. It's also a great opportunity to get people out there.
Yeah.
We create an atmosphere that's light, that's fun, but we can still do things safely and keeping in mind the environment.
Yeah. I believe that we all really like to share our skill set and the training that we have and pass it on to what I like to call to the future generations, because a lot of them are younger than I am. But and I think that's what's really important. And then we get to experience and see some of the most amazing scenery that a lot of people don't get to see. And that's, I think, of the importance, just sharing, because we'd hate to see the scenery and the trails disappear, right? So we want to pass on that knowledge to the future wheelers.
I've been through a number of clubs before I found Core JC. And what most impresses me about Core JC is the people, the friendliness, and the organization. and how we do things, I think, is unique in the community. We do a lot of promotion of rookie runs and teaching people how to do it safely. We have an organized guide training program within the club. We support the OF4WD, and we just have fun. It's very low drama, very low issues. Everyone is there because they want to wheel and they want to have fun, and we all work together, and it works really well.
And we don't mind sharing. I think we don't mind sharing. We all meet, if it's just a regular club run, we meet in a staging area. New people who may have taken a rookie run join in, and we get to check out each other's vehicle, and everyone's not afraid to share. It's not a hidden secret. And this is the mod I've got. Here are the people I got it from. So it's just it's an educational experience as well, right? So not just the whole social and getting out there on the trails. Yeah, it's been good. It's just a really great club.
I think you'll find with most of the club members, and especially all the guides, ask them anything about either trail riding or their vehicles, and they'll be happy to talk your ear off for hours.
Yep. And not afraid of having some of them sit in your vehicle because they just want to get a feel of what a 3.5-inch or a 4-inch lift is. And is it too tall for them to get into to begin with? So all that kind of fun stuff.
From my understanding, the group is all volunteer based, right? So the trail guides, trail guiding, all the volunteers that go and help support that are all volunteer based.
Yes, correct. We are all volunteers. We do it because we love it.
Because you do it because you love it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And one thing that I wanted to say was I began my wheeling journey, when I first got my Jeep was with Core JC. And one thing that drew me to joining the club as a member was exactly what you said. Was I wanted to learn, one, the trail system. I want to be part of a club that took people in and educated and was really friendly, and that would help me figure out what I want to do with my Jeep. And from there, that's where I started learning how to use my Jeep, what modifications I wanted to do. And I met a lot of people from that club as well that has become more like family to me. And I wanted to say that I appreciate and thank you for being trail guides, for volunteering, and for Mark and Angie that kept telling me, Trisha, stop standing up for newbie runs. You're not a newbie anymore. Come on. Stop doing bitter ham. I'm like, I just want to wheel with you guys.
We'll have to get you on some more difficult trails there, Trisha.
They they're like, Trisha, stop. Just stop. We'll do concession or something. But I wanted to say thank you to Angie and Mark. And I know that they put a lot of time and effort too into the club. And yeah, that's my little piece and my little 2 cents of the club. But as a newbie, what could you tell us a little bit about the trail system? Because I know like in other groups, or let's say the GTG growth groups, a lot of people ask about the trails and the trail system and like, where do I go? Where do I sign up? How can I learn what my Jeep is capable of doing? And what kind of trails are there? Is there beginner trails? What kind of terrain is it? Can you tell us a little bit about our trail systems here around Minden area, how that is?
Yeah, sure. Of course, the OF4WD, and I'm sure Brad will talk a bit more about that. The trails are rated anywhere from a 1 to a 5+, with 5+ being designated as the quote expert level. Though through the years, we've been noticing a change in the trails simply from wear and Mother Nature doing her part, snow, no snow, flooding, winds, hurricanes or tornadoes going through. But most of our club runs are probably a 2 to 3. although we do have some really adventurous members, I won't name any names, who tackle some of the more challenging, challenging 4 and 5s.
Yeah.
So as far as our rookie runs, the routes we do Picard, Pencil Lake Extension, there's Gooderham, Little Jacks Lake, which is a little further of a drive for some, but it's a really pretty drive. And that's just among others. And as far as actual club runs that we do, and just to explain that, a lot of the guides actually set up what club runs they want to do during a month. So if I'm up there every weekend, I'll say I'm going to do Gooderham this Saturday, or I'm going to do the Rock the following. But those could include Austin Lake, Anson Norris, Black Lake Bypass, the Rock, and there's so many more. So there is quite a range for individuals, starting from beginner all the way up to more experienced. And I guess the 3+ or 4 to 5+, you're looking at anything from Greens Mountain and South Forest, and of course more. My favorite, you mentioned Calabogie, out Ottawa way. There is such a variety. It's a very technical trail system, very tight. So you really have to know where everything is on your Jeep, but it's some of the most spectacular views that are out there. So if you're prepared to drive a little bit further and spend a weekend, especially a long weekend, it's a great trail system over there. But I tend to be enthusiastic about members advancing. So for me, starting off rookie, do all the rookie runs, try all the different trails, and then join a trail guide and just move up so they can experience all the trail systems once they get that background.
I love this idea of rating the trails. And first of all, I assume that the trail rating system is mostly when the trail is dry, right? Because mud and snow can definitely change the hardness of a trail.
Well, the trail rating system is based on the hardest obstacle on the trail that you cannot avoid.
Okay.
So it's always based on, you have to go through this to complete this trail. That's how we rate the trail. So you'll find some people will drive a trail and go, this isn't a 3. And then they get to the one big obstacle that's on the trail. Gooderham's a good example. And they go, oh, now I understand why it's a 3.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do really that trail rating system, because that's something we don't have out in BC. And I know the association here has talked about it for a number of years, but as with any volunteer association, it needs somebody to just take it and run with it kind of idea, right? As you all know, volunteer time is precious, right? But I do like that, because there's so many times that people can get in over their head. And if they have some sort of an idea of a trail rating system before they get there, definitely makes it a little bit easier, right?
Yeah, it helps.
Oh, for sure. Wes, to your point, though, it's not just taking it and run with it, it's also maintaining it as well. Because as Mo alluded to earlier, with usage and weather, things can change. So we need people to use the trails. That's part of one of the advantages of having the trails in an area that a lot of people use them, is there's a lot of opportunity for people to report on the conditions of the trails, which can then help the next person that's going to use it.
Yeah, trail ratings actually come from the Ontario Federation of Four-Wheel Drive. And one of the things you can do through them is do a trail report on the condition of the trail. And I'm a volunteer for them also. And we look at those reports and sometimes adjust the ratings on the trails. So it's a constantly evolving system.
Adjust the ratings, but there could be just a note saying you'll have notes from the people who have submitted reports before you, so you can see if there was something that you should pay attention to.
So is this talking with the OF4WD, where can people find these trail ratings? I assume it's on their website.
So on the OF4WD website, and it's for members only. So you join the OF4WD and you get access to their trail index. And once you're a member of OF4WD, you can look at it year round. And it has downloadable GPX tracks, information, descriptions of the trails. It's a great system. And well worth if you join the club, join Core JC, then your membership to F4WD is only $25 a year. So it's a really small fee for accessing a great amount of information about the trails.
Definitely. Maybe let's just, for a sec, let's hop into the OF4WD. That's the Ontario Association of Four-Wheel Drive Clubs, from my understanding, correct? And I know that when I was there years ago, they were a great resource. We had Campanelle and stuff like that. But it basically consists of clubs like yours and individuals volunteering to do things like the trail rating stuff. But they do a lot more than that. Brad?
They do. So I'm a former director of F4WD and a current volunteer. They do a lot of advocacy work, work with the government and other user groups on the trails. They have a insurance liability policy to help protect you while you're on the trail. They run Camp NL. They run their own newbie series, but ours is better. Come to us. And I volunteer for both, so I have to mention it. And so does Mo.
Yep.
And I lost track of what I've said they do now. Oh, Camp NL is the other big one that they run in August. Fantastic event. But we're not here to talk about OF4BD. We're here to talk about GC.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I just wanted to mention that it is a great organization that is made up of clubs like yours and individuals.
Yeah, and actually, the one thing that Core JC does do, and I believe, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're one of, I believe, the only club, or we are the only club that actually participates in the Adopt a Trail program. And what that is that we go to the OF4WD and we say we would like to adopt a. And what that means is that at least twice a year, we have a very small team, 2 to 3 Jeeps, and we go in, inspect the trail at the beginning of the season, pick up any fallen down trees if we can, report in if there's any potential widow makers that we can't take down ourselves due to safety reasons, pick up trash. And after the winter, sometimes there is something that gets picked up, of course. But actually, I must admit that for the past year or so, it's been not too crazy. And then we go back towards the end of the season, just make sure everything's ready for the winter people. So inspect bridges, make sure those are okay, and check on culverts if any are sticking out, if they're broken, if water's pooling, or especially like for Pencil, if the beaver dam has decided to break free or something and there's a new water crossing. So, and that's the beauty. It's a really great program, and I believe we have a couple of trails that we do that for.
I was going to say one correction there, Mo. We're not the only club that does the Adopt a Trail. We're the only club that does multiple trails.
Oh,
So
there you go.
this year we're planning to adopt 3 trails. In the past, we've had 4 trails. Most other clubs in the province will pick 1 because they don't get out on the trails as often as we do. We have a rookie run once a month. We have an organized run once a month. And our members are often just organizing impromptu runs. And it's because we're so central to where the trail system is. When you're a club that is coming from 3 and 4 and 5 hours away, you just don't get to the trails as often as we do.
Yeah, that totally makes sense for sure.
Yeah, like for example, my husband and I are pretty much up there from the start of the season till the end of the season. So we're going to do a lot more just to bring in the members and get them out there, get the rookies that have joined to really start coming out and enjoying the wheeling in the area. So hopefully it'll be a good year.
So let's talk about the rookies. Now, if somebody just bought a Jeep, whether it be a JKU or a JL or a Cherokee or an old XJ, whatever they've got, they just pick something up. They're like, I want to learn a little more about this 4-wheeling thing. I guess the first step would be finding the COORJC on Facebook as well as your website, and then joining up for a newbie run. Now, newbie run, is that something that is, I assume, is open to pretty much everybody, but is there some stipulations in regards to, say, toll points or anything like that? Or is it just sort of show up and then we'll make it work kind of idea?
So we're a Jeep club. So the number 1 stipulation is you have to drive a Jeep. Beyond that, you have to have selectable forward load, which all Jeeps do, and you have to have tow points, which all
Okay.
Jeeps do.
Mhm.
So as long as you drive a Jeep, you can come on a rookie run with us.
Yeah.
When you sign up, we ask you a few questions like, have you ever been off-road before? Do you have any upgrades? Have you been on any of these trails before? We then take everyone that signs up and we organize them into 4 different groups to go to 4 different trails at 4 different experience and capability levels.
Okay.
And then you just show up and we take you out.
We try to put people into groups that have similar levels of experience together. And that's where there's a small form to fill out to answer some basic questions. The person that's been 4 or 5 times with their JK is not going to be in the same group likely as the person who's just showing up with their $137,000 Grand Wagoneer.
And that makes sense. And that's why I was wondering.
And some people have like literally pulled out of the dealership. They just want to experience it. And then the look on their faces when they're like, as soon as you go into a trail and they're like, I'm not sure. I don't know what this thing is. And that's the beauty is the look on their faces, the laughter, the smiles. Once they realize what these beasts are actually capable of without having any modification done whatsoever. And then watching the guides, because sometimes we'll show them a different approach, a more senior level approach, and that gets them hooked. And that's what you want. You want them to be able to come back and do another rookie run and another rookie run, and then hopefully just move on from there.
Eventually they kicked off the rookie runs like Patricia was.
I'm holding my fingers up, forgetting that this is audio. 3 rookie runs is the normal number. So anyone can do the first one, and then members get to do 2 more.
Yep.
And I was that guy. It wasn't that long ago. It was 5 years ago now, and I did my very first rookie run, and Brad was there. And I think I got to that run, and I think I had 530 kilometers on my Jeep, and the meeting spot was 200 kilometers from my house.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
They got you hooked.
Like, I'll drive these 2 flowers every weekend.
Exactly, got it.
My first newbie run was with the OF4WD. And I remember actually it was my husband who had signed up for it. And then somewhere along the line, he asked one of the guides if we could switch. And that was it. I was nervous as hell. And then not long after that, we did a run with some Core JC members. And we came across, on Scotch Line actually, and we came across Mark and Angie who were having lunch. And we got to chit-chat, and the rest was history. So...
It's an addicting thing, isn't it? You mentioned earlier about it being like an adopted family or family of by choice kind of idea. And the world of off-roading, it's an addictive thing. You're out there in nature. You're always pushing the limits. I shouldn't say always pushing the limits of the vehicle, but quite often pushing the limits of yourself just as much as you are of your vehicle, and being out there with friends and having fun. So it's easy to see how these new people can get addicted.
And I actually look at it as we have each other's backs because we have to. Anything can happen, even to the most experienced. I've witnessed that occur, but everyone's there to help. And I think that's what's really amazing about this community and the 4-wheel drive community in general, not just Jeepers. We're talking about the club, but we're there for each other. And some of us have known each other for a very long time. And so I think that's the beauty of the club, and it's the beauty of the community. So,
yeah, definitely people make the biggest difference. It's really the people that do it. Again, I guess some would say lucky, some would say unlucky. My very first run was being led by Mark Sims, and Brad was the tail gunner. So I was already set up to be in a great position. Yeah. So it made becoming addicted to it so much easier because they were there.
Yeah.
So that's what we like to now capitalize on, knowing that this happens and continue to propagate that.
Yeah.
So sticking with the beginner theme or the newbie theme, somebody comes in, they go to a trail run, they're hooked. What would you guys suggest some of their first purchases be? Not necessarily modifications, but purchases be for to explore this whole new world of four-wheeling.
I can start right off. I don't think you don't do anything yet.
Mhm.
Even if you fall in love with it
Bingo.
the first time, I didn't do a thing to my Jeep for the first full year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I was out there pretty much every weekend.
Me too.
And to this point, my Jeep can probably still do more than I can. It's much, braver than I am, that's for sure. There's not a whole lot of feelings that it can feel if you get hurt.
Yeah, and as I said too before, it took me, I think it was almost 6 years before I really did some major modifications. And that's because doing all the wheeling and seeing what other people have, asking pros, cons, costs. Some people say they purchase a Jeep and they have to spend thousands of dollars right off the bat to be able to do to actually hit the trails. And it's not indeed the case. And I think, at least for me, I think one of the most important things would be, if I really had to do it right off the bat, it would be a winch. Just because it's an indispensable resource for extricating yourself or someone else out of a difficult situation. Certainly you should never be alone when you're wheeling. But I think I think that would be one of the first ones down the road. And as long as you are with people who have a winch, you're always able to get yourself out. And just ensuring that it's got ample pulling capacity and just familiarizing yourself with the safe use of the winch, which we actually do. So I'm sure Brad can talk to that, but
I would go a little bit simpler, somewhere in between both Mo and Dave. Again, sorry, I'm a visual person. My hands are going with it's not good.
I'm trying hard. I'm Italian.
I thought you were doing the ASL portion and the translation.
There's 3 things that I would recommend any early wheeler buy. One is replace the covers on your differential. If you do any amount of wheeling, even the first few years, differential covers on a Jeep, at least the JKs, are not heavy duty enough, in my opinion. And if you rip that open on a rock, it makes for a very bad day on the trail. And that's a cheap, easy early upgrade. Second item is recovery strap, not a toe strap, proper recovery strap with a soft shackle. Relatively inexpensive to buy and great to have. The third one is, especially on the JKs, you can buy small skid plates to put over your evap canisters. The location of the evap canister on a JK especially is terrible for off-roading, and it needs to be protected. Beyond those 3 things, drive the Jeep, do the trails, figure out what type of off-roading you like to do.
Bingo.
Do you like mudding? Do you want to just run some unassumed roads and see the scenery? Level 1 trails. Do you want to get into rock crawling and the bigger stuff? And depending on the type of off-roading you want to do is going to determine what you want to do to your Jeep. And you're not going to know that until you've done a dozen or so trails and you've experienced a variety of things. So the first year, a few simple upgrades, and then just experience some stuff. Figure out what you want to do, and then decide. The sky's the limit. You can spend a couple of $100 on upgrades. You can spend a couple of $20,000 on upgrades. And you don't want to do that right off. So you got to figure out what you want to do first. If all you're going to do is the unassumed roads and you like checking out the scenery and level 1 trails, you don't need to upgrade anything other than basic recovery gear. If you're going to get into eventually rock crawling, which is my world, then you need a winch. I've changed out axles. You need better gearing. You need lockers. You need all kinds of stuff to make life easier and more fun. So it really comes down to what type of wheeler you end up becoming.
It was
It's
funny.
important to look. Sorry, it's important to look at the difference between what you're actually doing as opposed to social media wheeling.
yeah.
It's extremely popular to get the biggest lift, the biggest tires, but if you don't really need it, why do it?
Mhm.
And so we talked earlier, mine is probably one of the smallest Jeeps in definitely of this group. Only got 2-inch lift and some 35-inch all-terrain tires because that's what I need for the trails that I like to do.
Mhm.
It was funny as you were first talking there earlier, Dave, that I was smiling and laughing because all this information that you guys have said is the same thing to Trisha and I keep saying constantly is don't do any modifications for at least the first 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
Get out there and see what your vehicle's capable of, see what you are capable of, and keep on pushing yourself this a little bit to learn what your capabilities are and what your vehicle's capabilities are. And Brad, you're 100% right. Figure out what you want to do. Are you going to go rock crawling? Are you just going to be hitting some of those four service roads and go from there? But, I would say the first modification is a full tank of gas and a Gaia map.
Yeah. And I think also you end up even just stock and running stock for a while, you're building skill sets because
Exactly.
you're really understanding what your Jeep can do, and which only makes you a better individual as you slowly progress. And then your skill sets change a little bit based on that. But I ran stock for a year where people were like going like, at what point? So I'm making it, I'm getting through. I'm tackling the trails like everybody else. I'm happy. And even today, like some of the trails, especially out Calabogie way, these guys are running 40-inch tires, 6-inch lift, and things like that. And there I am, and I'm just quietly treading and still getting through the trails. So I'm really pleased. And I walk away happy.
And that because those trails appeal to you, or like Brad was saying with the rock crawling, but as a new person, you just don't know yet.
Yeah.
You might get to a point too where you'll climb up something and you're like, nope.
Yeah.
You don't need to build a Jeep for something that in your mind is absolutely not.
Yeah, and I did that too at the beginning stock. It was like, are you sure I can make that? Because I just don't think I can do it.
If you're interested, if you look on the OF4WD website, I actually wrote an article on exactly that topic on what to do and when to do your modifications based on my story. Because I built my Jeep too fast. I know I built my Jeep too fast, and I recognize that now. So I always tell people, don't do what I did. Don't build it quick. Spend more time stock with minor modifications.
It's surprising how far a stock vehicle can go, especially like a solid axle Jeep. They are great off-road out of the box. And I'm the same thing. I've had lifted Jeeps and I've had lifted Land Cruisers and different things like that. And my Tacoma is small lift and 33s and a factory locker. And I'm happy with that. I can go most places where I want to go. And that should surprise a few people. But I've got to set up more for the overlanding side of things because that's where I am at this point in my life. 20 years ago, I was running the YJ with 38s and 40s and a 800 horsepower small block Chevy because I was living in Calgary and there's mud. But I've changed over the years and build it to what you want to do and figure out what you want to do first. So we all do change for sure.
Well, the newer vehicles are getting much more and more capable out of the box.
Oh, yeah.
Totally. Something like your Tacoma, I mean, it's just as capable as most Jeeps are. And the only thing you have different is like reliability.
We could go down that rabbit hole. Hey, Trisha, the motor.
But that's the beauty. That's the beauty of the community too, right? Because you banter back and forth, and you go on about the Ford Ranger or a Jeep versus a Bronco versus it's fun.
That's one thing I love about this. The streetcar industry. Some of those guys are a little bit more mean to each other, but a lot of us four-wheelers. I'm a Toyota driver now, but I've had Nissan, I've had Jeeps, I've had them all. They've all got their great things, all got their problems. We can sit here and talk as Jeep owners, and we can bash the Toyotas, but we're all laughing and smiling at the same time, except for the Land Rovers. We're all pretty serious about bashing Land Rovers, but other than that, we can bash each other, Chevy versus Ford versus Dodge or whatever. And most times we're just sitting there having fun. So that's one thing about the community.
Yeah.
So we do have a question. There was mention of Camp CO.
Camp
Central.
Core JC.
Camp Core JC.
Yeah, Core JC. There we go. I keep on forgetting how to pronounce it. So there was mention of Camp Core JC in some of the notes here. What can you tell us about that?
Okay,
So,
no one wants to start. KJC is actually
go ahead, Dave.
there is an individual that owns a large parcel of land that's right in the area of a lot of the trails, who has allowed the club members to use a section of their land as a campground. It's an unserviced campground. The cost to use is extremely low. I think it was like $10 a night for
Yeah.
an unserviced site, and it's find your own, and it can literally handle hundreds of people. It doesn't get used nearly as much. All that money goes to a charity, and what it does, it allows you to have some place for people that are maybe a little further out to be able to spend the weekend right where the trails are. So the access is fantastic.
And
The property is beautiful.
yeah.
And the cost is low. Cost is reasonable.
And you have use of their or kayaks, some great fishing, because there's a beautiful river. I guess you call it like a river bay
The
water
Park
area.
River, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very quiet, very peaceful. Of course, there's no hookup, but it's where we hold a lot of our club barbecues as well. And as David said, the money goes to a charitable organization, which is great, which is another nice part.
And there's a fire pit, there's an outhouse, as Mo alluded to, there's also a little beach area. So it's not just a flat piece of ground. It's literally a beautiful place and a very relaxing place to stay. And it's only accessible to Core JC members.
That itself is a huge benefit to joining up right there. Yep. Now, yeah, you guys are very lucky to have that landowner working with you, and very generous on their part. So a huge thank you to that landowner, because it sounds like a great place and makes it a little bit easier for you guys traveling trips. For example, you're in Toronto area and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Travel up, because there's nothing worse than doing a full day of wheeling and then having to drive 2 or 3 hours home.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Especially when you're on technical trail or long day trail and you got to trek back home, which I usually don't. Starting staying up for night. But
And it's not, there is an off-road park not far. And so it just depends on what people want to do. If you're an overlanding type individual and you're a member, base camp is perfect. And if you're more of a camper and you like the air conditioner and you like all the other great amenities, there is an off-road park not far. So you have the best of both worlds. But the fact that the base camp, the money goes towards for a charitable organization is a really nice thing.
great.
I guess we should throw out there that charitable organization that the Camp to Core JC money goes to is Halliburton Emergency Rural Safe Space.
Yes.
And what are they about?
It is actually for women and or their children who are in need to leave their home for a variety of different reasons. That is called the safe space.
Yep.
The money goes to.
That's a great cause. That totally, can't get
As you
better
can
than that.
imagine, it's not so easily accessible in rural parts of anywhere in Canada as it is in
exactly.
major urban centers. So it's a great
It's much
thing.
needed.
Pretty important thing to help with.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
actually, the other thing too that Core JC does, and which is quite a personal thing for me, is we run the Core JC Pause for Cause, and that's where once a year we ask members to donate funds or food and supplies for the rural shelter up in the Halliburton, Buckhorn, Indian type area. So that we donate to dogs and kitties in need. So
Another
A
great.
number of us are animal lovers as well.
yes, and jeeps and dogs,
Jeeps and dogs
are
go together.
synonymous with each other, I think. So
Yeah, definitely another great cause.
If I remember right from what Mark and Angie told me last time I was chatting with them, it's something like $7,000 or $8,000 in total that we've done to charities the last couple
Wow.
of years.
That is great.
Not exact numbers, memory, but it's around that ballpark.
Now, there's one thing I wanted to throw out there, because two of our guests here today are female, and we're starting to see a rise in females in the 4x4 industry. They've always been around. My parents met on a 4x4 run. They've always been around, but they're becoming more, we're seeing more of them driving their own rigs and being more involved on the driving side, stuff like that. So I do want to give a shout out to the female listeners. We have, quite a large following of female listeners. That I think that the Core JC is a very welcoming organization, from my understanding, to the women of the Jeep world. And that's something that I know that Tricia, you found as well too, when you joined up with them, that it didn't matter what you looked like or how you, whatever you called yourself, it just male, female, whatever, and very opening to that. So that is a positive sign as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know I've always felt welcomed. I'd love to see more female guides, and I know there are quite a few young ladies, I'd like to say, that are moving up to that. And I just love watching them progress. There's one great event that happens yearly that Tricia knows about, the Not a Pavement Princess, which I have to help guide with as well. A lot of the Core JC females who are guides or gunners, etc., also help participate in that event as well. We're slowly coming up, and to me, it's just wonderful to see. But what I also like is the support that the male community provides us as well. So it's 100%. Not just men versus females or anything like that. It's everyone's just helping each other, which I think is great. And we're driving our own rigs, we're modifying our own rigs, we're working on our own rigs, and we're learning from the men in our lives and in our club community and stuff, which is really great to see. So I'm really happy about that.
I'll mention that I own a Jeep and I do what I do because my wife bought a Jeep first and I started off-roading, and I drove her Jeep on a trail once and I sold my truck and bought my Jeep. Always a truck guy. Well, and I drove her Jeep once on a trail and I'm hooked. I blame her for all the money and all the things that we've done.
Well, and that's really funny he says that, because I actually, before buying my Jeep, I actually came from a Fiat 500. And it had its issues. And basically I was told, you have to get out of this vehicle. We have to get you out of this vehicle before something serious happens. And there came the Jeep. And my husband got a little jealous. And not long after that, there was a second Jeep in the thing. The rest is history.
When I'm slightly different, my wife doesn't have she's not into the whole Jeeping and off-roading thing. She's glad I am, because it gets me out of the house and people bugging her on those days. But we're all off-roaders. We've all done this. And I think we can agree that there is nothing that uniquely prepares either sex to do this activity. We're all equally capable of doing it, and there's really no difference.
Yeah.
The Jeeps and the Rocks don't see sex. They don't know if you're male or female. So speaking of which, though, I am going to go back to earlier interview, Mo, where you mentioned your Jeep is a she. This could go. No, I won't ask that question. I'm going to go. What have you named? I was going to ask about how temperamental it was, but
I'm going to say she's been really good to me. I think, honestly, she has 280,000 K on her. And to this day, I can honestly say it's been a really great vehicle. She's done me proud.
One of the favorite things Tricia, I know, loves to ask all of our guests is, what have you named your vehicles? So I'm going to do that for her. What have you named your vehicles?
Yeah.
Or have you named your Jeep?
Who wants to go first, Brad?
I'll go first. There's a story with mine. Early on in wheeling, I was on a trail, and the guide was saying, you really have to hug this tree as you go around it. I interpreted that by putting my passenger side tire on the tree and started driving up the tree. No, don't hug it that much. Back off. So I had to back it all off, and I had to go around it properly. So they started calling me the tree hugger. And tree hugger got shortened to Trugger. And my Jeep called Trugger.
Oh, I like that. That's a good story. I like it. I like it.
See, I didn't know that one.
Yep. That's
How about you,
it got-
Dave? Have you named your Jeep, Dave?
I have not. I've never named a vehicle that I've owned, and really now with the massive rise on vehicle theft and how popular the JLs are to be stolen, I'm just trying to hang on to what I got. So I'm like, right now, my Jeep identifies as invisible, and its pronouns are who, where.
Oh, no.
That's great.
So
Oh my God.
you're scared of long-term relationship.
Not at all. I just don't think it needs to be labeled.
And how about you,
Because
Mo?
I've had the same
Oh.
barber for years. I've rooted for the same hockey and football teams. So long-term relationships are not something new to me.
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
And how about you, Mo?
I've named my Jeep Tranquil Trickster.
Hmm.
And the reason behind that is I was at a Not a Pavement Princess, actually. And I had the founder of the event say something, saying that I was a just very calm and just a very calm guide. But I like to have fun. So that's where that harmonious, tranquil side of me and just the whole funny wheeling and just having a great time with people and making light of certain situations and that's how it just all came to be. So it's all sort of part and parcel of the person that I am without giving up.
I think it really does suit you because I've done trails with you and you are very calm. Just very calm. It's just
A lot of other people are panicking around me and being
she's very
cautious about a move that I make, and then I'm just going through in between the trees or whatever, and I'm just like, I'll get it done.
Yeah, I like it. I
Well,
like
well, have you, Wes and Tricia, shared what you named your vehicles with your listeners yet?
Yeah.
Have
Tricia,
we?
I think we have talked about it, but go ahead, Tricia.
Mine, so for a long time, I was like, I'm not going to name my Jeep. There's no way. Like, we're like, oh, it's a red Jeep. You have to name it. I'm like, So mine just came from people at work. So at the hospital, for some reason, my Jeep is always spotted. I'm like, you're at work today. I'm like, how do you not work today? Oh, I saw you the Jeep. I'm like, okay. And then they're like, it's so big. It's not lifted that much. It's only 2.5. So they're like, it's big. It looks meaty. Okay, sure. So they just started calling the red beast. So they're like, oh, the red beast is here. The red beast is here. And then it stuck with me. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be called the red beast. Simple. Someone else picked the name. I'm like, okay, I like it. It's stuck. It's stuck.
Yeah, and it is a beast.
It is a beast.
I don't necessarily have a name that I commonly call my Tacoma right now. It depends if it's in a good mood, but I never named my vehicles up until a previous relationship. And the girls were like, oh, you got to name a Jeep. So they tried naming my Jeep, and it was names that were not appropriate for a tough, meaty, burly Jeep. It was not a Panda Flower Express or whatever they wanted to call it. When I got into this one, I was going with Groot, but it hasn't really grown on me, so I don't really have a proper name for it. It hasn't come to me yet and hasn't been suggested to me yet because it is a white Tacoma, which is plain and boring. And I've tried to keep things stock looking, mild lift, tall, narrow tires on stock rims to keep, everything nice and clean and stockish looking. And so I haven't got one that I would say that has stuck yet. So it'll come.
It'll come.
You still have lots of time, and every week there's always Taco Tuesday.
Exactly. Yes, it loves its taco sauce. That's one thing. It drinks its taco sauce. But as Jeep owners, I know you guys have it worse than I do. So
Yeah.
It's better on gas than my old F-150 was. That's all I'm saying.
Nothing can be as bad as on gas as what my Xterra was. I'm getting like almost double the mileage that my Xterra was. So have we missed anything you guys wanted to mention? I know we've talked about a lot of stuff, but.
Oh, I know I wanted to ask. I know Mo said earlier your favorite trails were in the Kalabuki area, which I have to go one day. Is Dave and Brad, what are your favorite trails to go on?
Oh, that's a hard question because there's so many good trails.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't have one.
Okay.
I honestly don't. I do love running the rock. I love taking newbies or rookies on pencil. So my favorite guiding trail for taking rookies is by far Pencil Lake. It's just the perfect combination of easy and then more difficult and then holy cow and then more difficult and then easy again from their perspective. It's a perfect guiding trail in my mind. Personal, Anson South,
Okay.
the Rock. I have lots of great ones that I like running.
And for me, tree folks here will know that my favorite guiding trail is going to be Gooderham. It too has that great mix of some easier sections and then some a little bit more challenging. And then there's a couple that provide good pucker factor for someone who's quite new, which is always unfair to see. Personally, I actually love to go up to Vemans in the Mattawa area. There's just miles and miles of trails, and it's it's just different scenery than the trails that I've done so often here. And there's things like the mine you can explore. There's some crazy lookouts, and it goes from level 1 to level 3 all day. Some really tight, some really open. There's just so much variety.
You got to tell me when you're going next, Dave, because I haven't made it up there yet.
Yeah, I'd love to go up there.
That's where I am right now. I'm in around that area, North Bay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You're very close.
Yeah.
Well,
So
we have our sister club, which is NORJC,
Yeah,
the
NORJC.
Northern Ontario Off-Road Jeep Club. And I've talked about many times with Joshua Dean, who's the president of that club. And they have at least a couple of runs a year or events at the BMARTS area. I mean, it is pretty special.
Yeah. So I did my first winter wheeling with Josh, with Norge. There was only a couple of us girls, like my little crew. And we're like, you know what? Let's go to North Bay. Let's go and check out the system. So my first winter wheeling experience was with them. And let me tell you, it was an experience. We had so much fun, but we were wenching the whole time. It was like 6 kilometers, like 6 hours. But it was fun. The trail system up here is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It is different from Central Ontario. So you guys have to check it out. But I'm not here often. I'm just here visiting. But it's a different trail system up here too. Yeah.
Winter wheeling is a whole different beast.
Whole different beast. Whole different beast. Yeah.
Especially up in Northern Ontario, where the winters can be a little more severe. It can become challenging very quickly.
Yes. I've learned that very quickly. But it was fun. It was a cool experience. And those guys are awesome.
Can we do a shout out to our sponsors? Because our club has
Yes.
a couple of great sponsors.
Yes.
Our headline sponsor is Beast Off-Road, a great off-road shop that provides all kinds of information to people and great work. And they donate quite a bit to our club every year for prizes and raffles and giveaways. Lake Ridge Chrysler is already confirmed to come back as our dealer sponsor this year. And in the past, we've had a number of other sponsors, Durham 4x4, Off-Road Rehab, and I'm sure I'm forgetting other ones, and I don't have my list in front of me, but we're working on those agreements right now. We just have been talking to Afraid Not Ropes, great company, and they've agreed to come on as a sponsor for this year. It'll be our first time having Afraid Not Ropes as a sponsor.
Ian is a great guy. I did an interview with him, probably about a year and a half ago, and wonderful guy. And he was also just on recently with the Trillium Off-Road Recovery Group interview that we did. And he joined us with that one. And I can't say enough good things about him. The quality of his ropes from everything I've seen has been really good, and a stand-up guy from
Yeah.
what I've personal experience, as well as when other people are giving me feedback as well, and stand-up guy for sure.
Yeah, I actually have his winch rope, his recovery ropes, shackles, and definitely an amazing product. And he's a genuinely nice individual. So
Yeah.
done a good job, and Canadian made, which is even better.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's important to thank our sponsors because a lot of the things we can do are because of them.
Yeah.
It's great to have them with us, and we're always looking for more. So you can always look us up at CoreJC.com if you think that you'd want to sponsor the club.
Checking my shirt to see if it had the list, but this one doesn't have it on it.
Yes, sponsors, it's about building that relationship, right? So Beast Off Road, I've heard a number of great things about them. I know Trisha's got work done there before.
Yep.
And there's quite a few comments about them that I've heard from other people as well, too.
And they're not just a financial sponsor. Quite often, Beast Off Road comes out for our rookie runs and actually guides one of the trails as well. So they're actually not just taking your money to work on your stuff. They're out there and riding with us.
Which I think is important. When you look at, I was in the 4x4 industry for 20, 30 years. And when you look at certain companies where they're just selling stuff off the shelf versus people that are going out there and experiencing it, whether they're with your organization or they're out with just their friends, but they're out there experiencing and putting the products that they sell through the tests, they have a better idea on what to recommend to you and how to fix your vehicles if they've had the same problems with their vehicles over the years. So it just makes them, I think, a better company to work with if they're out there abusing their products. For sure. So
Shout out to Dan, John at Beast Off Road.
having said that, Trisha, do you want to ask the last question?
Sure. So our last question we always ask all of our guests is, what Canadian would you like to hear on the 4x4 Canada podcast?
Brett?
Okay, I'll jump in with two.
Okay.
Am I allowed two? Is that okay?
You can
Two?
allow as many as you want.
Oh,
Great. I got two that I'm thinking.
Build a list.
One I've mentioned earlier in the podcast, and that's the Ontario Federation of 4x4 or four-wheel drive. There, look, I got there. How did I get their name? Ontario Federation of Four-Wheel Drive. They are the advocacy group in Ontario for off-roading in our sport. I'm a former board member. I'm a current volunteer, and I believe in the organization. We need to talk to you guys. The others,
Definitely.
a couple of people that I know, Brett and Castile from BK Overland.
Yes, absolutely.
BK Overland, I've known Brett as long as I've been wheeling. I met him as a wheeler. They have transitioned from a traditional wheeling, which is I still do, to being part of the overland community and have done great things in overlanding. And they're expanding still, and they have quite a following on Instagram.
Yep.
And they are great people to have a chat with.
Definitely recommend both of them. Both of them are on my list for sure. I will shoot you an email later on, Brad, in regards to contact information of that, because the OF4WD definitely want to talk to them. And it's organizations like that and organizations like yours that are help keeping trails alive in Ontario. So we want to promote what they are doing as much as possible and what you guys are doing as the Core JC as well. But definitely want to talk to both of those for sure. Mo, did you have a recommendation?
Yep. I actually had a couple, and one because I actually saw the epic family road trip coming through Barrie and was really excited. So the Van Stralen family. So I've been following them for a long time. Watched the kids pretty much grow up out of mom and dad's Jeep into their own vehicle and traveling the world. I just think they really inspire families to get out there and explore and be adventurous and be like a united family, not just they're sharing these adventures across Canada and all over the globe. And the other one would be Northbound Expeditions out of New Brunswick. They operate an adventure lifestyle type company. They do great They're on YouTube. They're on Instagram. They also produce really great trail gear, so recovery bags and all that kind of stuff. So I think it'd be nice to give a shout out to the East Coast a little bit, which is where my husband's family's from. And Tasha side, Red side. Yeah, those are two that come to mind for myself. And definitely K Overland, which is the favorites of mine.
Definitely good suggestions as well too, Mo. I've been following the Epic Family Road Trip for a while as well too, and
they just seem like really good, down to earth people.
Yeah,
they really care. They tread lightly. Their videos are phenomenal, and I think it's a great family bonding. I think thing to see and watch.
100%. And Dave, do you have any suggestions?
I don't have any specific suggestions of who I'd like to see, but what I'm just looking forward to listening to further episodes of the podcast and hearing from people from all over Canada. We've got suggestions for Ontario. I'd like to hear more from BC and from the East Coast, Quebec. We don't hear anything from the middle of Canada.
No.
Yes.
So if you guys can get people there, that'd be fantastic. It's just a great thing to listen to. And
that's one thing we are trying to hit every province and every territory. So we've got BC, Alberta. We've had one from Saskatchewan. So Manitoba, shout out to Manitoba, even though I roasted you on Instagram the other day. We do love Manitoba though still. So we do want to hear from Manitoba people. Quebec, we would love to hear from Quebec. We do have one gentleman coming up soon from Quebec. And he just came from a tour in Africa.
Oh,
and
nice.
we want to talk with him, getting him on soon. And the East Coast for sure. We've had a couple members on, or a couple guests on from the East Coast, and we want to hear more East Coast stuff. I am in love with the East Coast, even though I'm on the West Coast. There's still something about the East Coast, whether it's the people or the ocean and the scenery. There's something about the East Coast that I absolutely love. Absolutely. And I want to hear more from East Coast people. Yeah. And of course, the territories. We haven't had anybody else from the territories yet. So I and myself would love to make that trip up to Tuktoyaktuk, and but won't be happening this year, maybe next year. But I would love to hear more from people in the Yukon and Northwest Territories. And
MBX actually is really good in that they just go into these really great little places, and where you can park on the beach and overland spend the night close to the Bay of Fundy, for example. So they really cover and they really get to show the province the way it should be shown, which is really beautiful.
Awesome, folks. I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your Saturday afternoon and joining Tricia and I here today. Brad, I hope that you get your yard all cleaned up with all your branches and twigs. And
2 months I've been working on it. I've got another month to go, probably.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. And Dave, thank you for coming out as well, too. And really want to thank you guys for what you guys are doing and helping with all the club runs and all the volunteer work that you guys do with the Core JC for sure. So
thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. It's been great.
Yeah. See you on the trails, Trish.